Well, hello there and welcome. This is the Disability Law Show. So good to have you along for the next 30 minutes, give or take, and stick around for lots of information. Sivan Tumarkin right beside me, Samfiru Tumarkin LLP, the most positively reviewed law firm in this country, coast to coast to coast. You can reach out to Sivan and his team anytime, 1-855-821-5900 email address, which I'm sure we'll get to on the show today, help@disabilityrights.ca. A couple more, though, mydisabilityquestions.com. That's a place to do exactly that, anonymously and free. Ask your questions about disability. Also has a nifty searchable database. What does that mean? That means you can type in a question, part of your question, and if it's been asked previously, it should come up. Save you some time. If not, leave it there. They'll get to it. And I know Sivan likes to mention ltdfaq.ca. Really quick, simple memos about LTD, ltdfaq.ca. But we'll get to all that a little later on in the show. Plus, 3 things you need to know about addiction and LTD a little later on. Mouthful to start us off. But Sivan, we always get to you first. The week that was, something you've been working on. And what would that be this week, pal?
John, I wanted to start off by telling you about a phone call that I had earlier this week with a gentleman out of Surrey in British Columbia. This person is in his early 40s. He works in the IT industry, so he's a high earner. He has 2 small kids at home. He's been suffering from severe depression because his family from India has been really heart-struck due to COVID. He's had several fatalities in his family there. And so he's been suffering from depression. He's also predisposed to depression. So that's been something he's been struggling with, but he's been okay up until, again, the last few years because of COVID. And so what happened there was that he was approved for long-term disability with his insurance company through work benefits. And 6 months in, there was a change of adjusters. Instead of the adjuster he had initially that was managing his LTD claim, he now had a different one. And this new person is a lot more aggressive. And I've seen some of the emails back and forth. And I've heard stories from this person and from his wife about how this new adjuster is now being very disrespectful. This adjuster is just very, very aggressive in how she's approaching the questions that she's asking him. Why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? Why are you not trying this? Your doctor is not doing this correctly or that. Just saying things and acting very unprofessionally. And of course, the concern here is, well, what's going to happen with my claim? Remember, this person is suffering from a mental health issue. Okay, severe depression is not something to scoff at. It can be very debilitating. Add to that the complication that his company, where he works, is undergoing restructuring, and there is an indication that he may be losing his job. So here we have a situation which is not uncommon for us to see, where a person contacts us, our firm specifically, because we have this dual expertise that people know us for, which is employment law and long-term disability law. And I explained to him 2 things. Number one, with the employment side, I'm not the employment lawyer, but of course, as people know, we have an employment law show. We have employment lawyers across BC, Ontario, and Alberta. If anything happens with his job where he gets terminated, if he loses his job, it's absolutely vital for him to get in touch with us so that we can help him. And I'll put him in touch with the right employment lawyer who's going to help him. But that can also impact his LTD entitlements, because insurance companies usually put in a provision in these long-term disability policies that say that if you get LTD and you then lose your job and you get severance or termination pay, the insurance company is entitled to a credit for that. Meaning that if you're getting, for example, $3,000 in LTD a month, that's $36,000 a year. And let's say that you lost your job and you got offered $36,000 in severance for the year. The insurance company may say, well, that's great. We're not going to pay you now for a full year because you're getting that severance from your employer. So again, there are ways to minimize that. There are ways to deal with that. So I was explaining that to him. And with respect to the tone of this new adjuster, again, I can do an hour on this topic, John. I get very upset when people tell me how disrespectfully they are being treated by some adjusters. Remember that you are the claimant. It's your policy. The insurance company has a fiduciary duty to treat you and your claim in good faith. And that's a very onerous duty. I know legal speak, it's legal jargon, but basically it boils down to the fact that the insurance company must treat you with respect. And if they don't, you have options. You can complain to the manager, you can ask for a switch of adjusters, you can go to your doctor and explain that this is creating further anxiety for you. further debilitating your condition, and ask for a note from the doctor that basically tells the insurance company that their conduct and how they're handling your claim is making things worse. That opens them up to potential punitive damages if you were to actually take legal action against them. So again, John, I can do a whole show just on this individual here. The point is this: I spoke with him for over an hour for free, and I want to make that clear for people. When you contact us about your long-term disability issues, rejections, denials, claims, we will speak with you for free. We'll review the documents for free, and we'll tell you what your rights are. We'll explain to you exactly what you can and cannot do. You will be empowered, and you will know what your options are at that point. So again, as we go through this show, just make sure that if you don't take notes down, that you see this show again, or go to our website where we have all of our shows. And again, go and email us, or go to mydisabilityquestions.com and pose your question. This is what we do here. We give this information for free to empower people out there.
Again, disabilityrights.ca is the website Sivan speaks of. The phone number 1-855-821-5900. Interesting little tidbit sidebar to that entire story, Sivan, by the way, especially when it comes to mental disabilities and people off for that reason. That once the free phone call is great. He's going to get some information from you, but if he now turns around and says, you know what, Sivan, I need your help in dealing with this. Once you get involved with that claim, it is radio silence for that insurance company, meaning they can no longer contact and harass him, which could be 50% of him getting better in a lot of cases, right?
Even more than that, John, even more. Yeah. I mean, when I speak with people, I think I've told you this for years, oftentimes when I do these consults for people and I tell them, look, we can get in there, we can deal with the insurance company on your behalf once you've been denied your claim. And what people take away from that meeting or that conversation is, wait a second, I don't have to speak with this adjuster anymore. I don't have to take their phone calls, their emails, their letters. Correct. Exactly. When you have us in your corner, when we are representing you in a case against the insurance company, we are the ones communicating with the insurance company. And by the way, I'll tell you this, and I'm saying this anecdotally, but I can tell you that adjusters have said that to me in the past. In many cases, the way that you as a person who feels targeted by the insurance company, you feel like there's this power imbalance, you feel like they are really, squeezing you and acting in a way that makes you feel small. We don't try to do that, but by virtue of our experience and our reputation, many of these adjusters feel that when we deal with them. We don't treat them in a disrespectful manner, but we know what we're doing. They understand that we're talking business, and they understand that when we actually take on a case, we believe in that case. We're going to put the firm's resources behind that case. We're going to go all the way. And so it completely alters the game. My colleague James Fireman likes to say that when we get in there, when you actually hire us, when we have to fight the insurance company, we don't level the playing field. We tip it in your favor. And that's true.
Another website you can use, again, this is part and parcel to our sister show, which is the Employment Law Show with Lior, but they put together a really cool website a number of years ago called pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. Of course, it has a lot to do with employment law, hence the title, but there is a section I know you want to talk about briefly, Sivan, about LTD in there as well.
Exactly. It does contain a section about LTD. It's a free website. It's to avoid people going to Dr. Google to get their false information from. When you need free and accurate information, and maybe you don't want to contact us or any lawyer at this given point in time, and you're just Googling the information, just don't do that. Just go to Pocket Employment Lawyer. You'll get free and accurate and quick answers about not only your employment issues, but your disability issues. Because, John, as we started the show, and I explained about that gentleman I was speaking with out of Surrey, many individuals out there who are having issues with their insurance companies also have concerns with their employers, and vice versa. So the Pocket Employment Lawyer certainly contains a section that deals with long-term disability. You can get a quick analysis from this program about your case. And again, if you want to contact us afterwards, by all means, you can. If you don't, that's fine as well, as long as you've gotten the information you need.
Let's grab an email before we break, Sivan. help@disabilityrights.ca. You can use that anytime as well. This from Nicole. Says, my disability benefits were cut off because I didn't attend 2 rehab sessions that were set up for me. I rescheduled the appointments right away, and the therapist I was seeing was fine with it, but the insurance company is refusing to communicate with me. My employer is now asking when I'll return to work as my benefits have ended, and I'm worried I'm going to lose my job.
It's a lot to unpack here, John. A lot of people are concerned when they miss treatment, especially, by the way, with COVID, when clinics were backlogged or even closed. that the insurance company will actually shut them out of those claims. And unfortunately, many insurance companies have taken the opportunity and run away with people's money. They've rejected claims and never to open those claims again. Here's the thing. LTD policies contains provisions that say that you have an obligation to undergo reasonable treatments at all times. And that makes sense. I have no issue with that. I think people should undergo reasonable treatments in conjunction with their doctor's recommendations. If you're missing an appointment or two, and you're dealing with your service provider, your physiotherapist, your psychologist, whoever it is you're going to, and it's all reasonable, I don't see any reason why this should bother the insurance company or you. I mean, you're not stopping those treatments. Something happened. You couldn't make the appointment, or the service provider wasn't able to provide it to you. So the point is that it should not impact your LTD claim. And again, if it does, that's when you contact us. And in terms of your employer, look, the employer is not allowed to get specifics about your disability. Your employer, it has to obviously accommodate you. They have to tread very carefully because we have human rights laws on how to deal with disabled individuals. And at the end of the day, again, if you had more substantive issues with your employer, this is when I will tell you, I'm going to connect you with one of our employment lawyers who can help you and answer your questions. So you see, John, again, another example of how employment law and long-term disability law are intertwined. And that's why we have not only lawyers that do employment law and disability law, we also have lawyers who are hybrid lawyers. That's what we call them, because they do both LTD and employment. Because for many people out there, you need that dual expertise.
Coming up here, key things to know about LTD and addiction. Stick around for that. That is on the way after a short break. In the meantime, the number 1-855-821-5900, help@disabilityrights.ca as well. More disability law shows on the way. Stick around. People think you should go to the government to get severance pay. EmploymentLawyer.ca says that is a myth. Government can only help you get minimum severance, but not everything you're entitled to. Always check with the employment lawyer first at EmploymentLawyer.ca. If your long-term disability claim is denied, should you appeal?
Appeals often fail because insurance companies control the process. So long as you appeal, you're playing by their rules.
You should never appeal the denial of your disability benefits. Appeals are just a mirage of false hope.
Don't. That's their process. Take it out of their hands and fight for your rights with our help.
Go to disabilityrights.ca. Discover your rights, fight back, and get what you're owed. People think their employer can make changes to their job. EmploymentLawyer.ca says that is a myth. Your employer can't change your pay, hours, or duties. You may be entitled to full severance pay. Always check with the employment lawyer first at EmploymentLawyer.ca. Okay, welcome back. Disability Law Show. John Scholes here. Beside me, co-founding partner Samfiru Tumarkin, LLP. And that would be our good pal Sivan Tumarkin, the most positively reviewed law firm in the country. Okay, three key things to know between LTD and addiction about those two together. Sivan, I want to get right into this. First one is this. Addictions are generally considered to be illnesses in most disability policies. Break that down for me.
Absolutely. I mean, when we're dealing with addictions like alcoholism, when we're dealing about substance abuse and other types of addiction, those are considered to be disabilities. By the way, John, not under just LTD policies, but human rights legislation. Even employers in the employment world, the employment context, they have to tread very carefully when you're dealing with somebody who is disabled or has issues as a result of an addiction. And, we do see not only employers not understanding this, but insurance companies not understanding this. So it's important to understand that if you have an addiction issue, first of all, you should be getting the appropriate treatment. So we're going to talk about that. But it's absolutely critical for you to understand that the insurance company cannot simply deny your claim on the basis that, oh, you're not injured and you're not ill with cancer or multiple sclerosis or something else. Addictions are in fact considered to be illnesses under the vast majority of policies that I have seen.
Second point is this, and I guess this expands to most things in disability with people getting treatment, but those suffering from addiction must comply and continue to get treatment, recommended treatment as well while they're doing that, correct?
Yes, absolutely. However, I can tell you that, again, this is an area where insurance companies exploit. I'll tell you about a case that I had a few years back in BC. I had a gentleman, young person, who was an alcoholic. And he actually was, he had a profession that paid him a lot of money. He was doing really well, but there were personal circumstances that led to him having an addiction and a reliance on alcohol. He had a phenomenal family doctor who also happened to also be an addiction specialist. And the problem is that, as it happens with many people who suffer from alcoholism and who try to get rehab, this person fell off the wagon quite a few times. And so the insurance company, the long-term disability insurer, took the position that he was not in compliance with reasonable treatments because he kept stopping. And on its face, that may look like it makes common sense, right? I mean, if this person stops their treatments every so often, well, they're in non-compliance. The insurance company must be right, except that they're not right. And I had a conversation, a very long conversation with his doctor, who is an addiction specialist. And she explained to me that falling off the wagon when you're dealing with alcoholism and any kind of addiction is actually part and parcel of the treatment regimen. As long as you are trying to get better, you're going to have instances where, as part of your disability, as a symptom of your addiction, you are simply going to stop treatments every once in a while. It's not a good thing, but it's part of the disease. And so she prepared a letter, actually 2 letters, very comprehensive letters that explains in detail these concepts in reference to, also academic articles and studies, etc. And guess what? We ended up resolving the case with his insurance company. They ended up paying him in the mid-6 figures to settle this case because they understood that if I ever took this in front of a judge, they would lose the case. So again, it's important to understand you do have an obligation if you're suffering from addiction to take and get reasonable treatments. But if the insurance company tries to deny your claim or cut off your benefits because you keep falling off the wagon, but you do want to try and you are working with your treatment provider to get better, you do have options there. Don't simply allow the insurance company to throw that in your face, that this addiction that is forcing you into the state, that is victimizing you, don't let the insurance company capitalize on that and keep the money that's owed to you.
What we are focusing on, if you're just joining us, is 3 key things to know about addiction and LTD. Number 3 is this, Sivan. Claims for addiction are often denied on the basis that there's lack of medical documentation, we love that term, or that the person can just continue working.
I see this all the time. This is one of those things where insurance companies are simply, they're biased against people who have addictions. To me, that is very similar to psychological disabilities, where insurance companies simply don't buy it, quote unquote, that you are depressed or have severe anxiety, can't go to work. I don't really care what insurance companies think. Honestly, I do not care. I don't care what these adjusters think. I don't care what their supervisors think. I care what the treating doctors are saying. And if you are suffering from addiction or anything else, whether it's a physiological injury, in other words, a physical injury, that's what I meant, or a psychological illness, addiction, anything else, if your doctors who are treating you are saying you are unable to complete the essential tasks of your occupation, you have an LTD claim, period. And if the insurance company takes the position that you don't, or you're not disabled enough, or they don't buy what your doctors are selling, that's fine. Let's take the fight to them. That's when you give me a call. That's when you speak with a member of my team or me, and we will tell you if, in fact, after reviewing the documentation from your doctors, if you have a case. And if your doctors say that you have a certain illness, be it an addiction or something else, and you cannot work, trust me, you have a case, and we can go after the insurance company.
Again, feel free to reach out to Sivan, especially on this topic, right? You feel like you don't want to, you're closed in about it. It's a free phone call. Have a chat with them, 1-855-821-5900. Just get your bearings and make that call for a bit of a conversation. We'll go to break. Lots more to cover. Reaching out through email, help@disabilityrights.ca. And we have mentioned the website, mydisabilityquestions.com. That is free. That is anonymous. Easy to ask your questions there and get pretty quick answers from Sivan's team as well. And that's where we're going to go after the break, right here on the Disability Law Show. People think contractors aren't owed severance. EmploymentLawyer.ca says that is a myth. Many contractors are actually employees and are entitled to full severance pay. Always check with the employment lawyer first at EmploymentLawyer.ca. How do you force insurance companies to pay long-term disability claims?
Insurance companies deny legitimate claims all the time. They're playing the odds. They know that most people are just going to walk away.
Your insurer may ignore you. They may even ignore your doctors, but they can't ignore us.
We know how insurance companies work. We know their weaknesses. We know how to use the legal process to force them to pay you what you're owed.
Go to disabilityrights.ca. Discover your rights, fight back, and get what you're owed. People think you are only owed 2 weeks' pay when you lose your job. Employmentlawyer.ca says that is a myth. You may be owed much more than 2 weeks per year. Don't settle for less. Always check with the employment lawyer first at employmentlawyer.ca. All right, welcome back. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Disability Law Show. Again, Sivan Tumarkin, co-founding partner. Samfiru Tumarkin, LLP. They're the most positively reviewed law firm in this country. Many different ways to reach out. The phone number always works, right? 1-855-821-5900. There's also mydisabilityquestions.com. That website was constructed to be free and anonymous and a place for you to ask questions anytime you would like. You can search to see if your question has been asked previously. If not, leave it there, and a member of Sivan's team will get to it, just like Jessica has done. Sivan, let's get to Jessica's question again, mydisabilityquestions.com. She says, I'm getting regular treatment from my doctor, counselor, and psychiatrist for severe depression and anxiety. I haven't improved much, but have been on LTD for a few years. I was assigned a new case manager last month, and he told me I must attend an assessment with one of their doctors. Why are they doing this, and do I have to go?
Well, Jessica, this is not unusual. The answer to your question is a yes, you have to go. Under every LTD policy that I have ever seen, there's a provision that indicates that if the insurance company requires you to undergo an assessment with one of their doctors or providers, you have to go through that assessment. That said, the rationale behind it, or the reason why they're probably doing that, is because they're trying to figure out if they can cut you from the claim, to stop your benefits. And the way they do that is by sending you to one of their doctors, one of their so-called experts, and then getting a report from that doctor that hopefully justifies their decision to stop your benefits. Now, you've mentioned that you have been on claim for a few years now. I don't know if that's over 2 years or not. The reason I'm saying that 2 years, why I'm referencing 2 years is because under most LTD policies, to get LTD for the first 2 years, you have to demonstrate that you cannot do the essential tasks of your own occupation. Beyond the 2-year mark, the test changes. It's now any occupation. So you cannot do the essential tasks of any occupation for which you are suited for by training, education, or experience. In other words, can you get a job after 2 years that will pay you whatever your LTD amount is? Let's say 65, 67, 70% of your pre-disability income. If you can, well, then at that point, the insurance company may be justified in stopping your benefits because you no longer qualify under the policy. If you can't, well, then they're not justified in stopping your benefits. The reason why this is important is because if you've been on LTD beyond 2 years, then you have surpassed that red line, right? That line that delineates between own occupation and any occupation. So it would be interesting to me to find out if you're being asked to go to an assessment after that 2-year mark. And the reason it's going to be interesting is because clearly they agreed that you are disabled from any occupation. Well, what's changed to make them think that perhaps you can do some other occupation? And you, I think, mentioned that there's a new adjuster on the file. So again, when we see new adjusters on files, on claims, we often see those adjusters take more aggressive or assertive views of those claims. So you don't need to panic. You just need to do exactly what you've done before. You need to comply with our request to go see that doctor. You need to let your doctors know that this is coming up. And if, in fact, when you go to that doctor from the insurance company and afterwards there is a report that's generated that contradicts what your doctors are saying, in other words, says that you can go back to work or you're not that disabled, you need your doctors to reply to that. In any event, the good thing is that you've posed that question. We've made that connection now. I've spoken about this. I urge you that after the show or at some point in the near future, contact our office. Let's have a more substantial discussion for free about your situation, and we'll give you tips about how to deal with that IME, that independent medical assessment, that appointment with your doctor, and we'll explain to you what you should be aware of, how you should prepare for it, what should happen during the assessment and after. And John, you had mentioned, obviously, again, the website, ltdfaq.ca. Well, there's a memo in that website that deals with these kinds of assessments, how to deal with them before the assessment, during the assessment, and after the assessment. So it's an excellent question, something that we see quite a lot. I tell people, don't panic, but be on your guard. If the insurance company wants you to see one of their doctors or one of their specialists or providers, there is a reason for that. They're not doing it because they just want to shell out money. They're doing it because they're hoping they're going to get an opinion from that person they hired that will justify their decision to stop your benefits. And that's when we come in.
A couple things about that you just mentioned, Sivan. Number one, hoping to get a positive opinion. I would assume that the insurance company's paying this person to do this, so they would obviously assume it's going to go their way. Number two, if you're seeing this doctor for an assessment, and in this case, several years with your own medical team, how is their opinion even going to hold any weight based on the whole doctors you've been working with the entire time that you've been off? They obviously know your situation much, much better than any one-time assessment, no?
Yeah, well, let's start from the second point you made. You're absolutely right. And they know that, except that they can't hire your treating doctors to provide them with the reports they want. So they default to the first part, right? They default, and this goes to your first point, which is that they default to hiring someone and paying that person to do what's called an independent medical examination of you, assuming that's a doctor. And I always laugh at this term, independent. It's not independent. They've selected that doctor, handpicked. They're paying that doctor. They've worked with that doctor before in many cases. And many of these doctors, by the way, are known in the industry as being insurance doctors. And by the way, John, again, I've mentioned before, I used to work for insurance companies many, many years ago. We would have a roster of doctors we would go to for these kinds of things, these kinds of assessments, because we knew that we could count on those doctors to provide opinions that would be favorable to the insurance company. And I think people out there are just shaking their heads and saying, how is this even allowed? How can that happen? Well, that's just the system we have. We have to work within that system. It's allowed. By the way, experts like doctors in legal cases, they have to sign a form that actually says that they are providing objective opinion. And their officers, they're going to act as not officers of the court, but they're going to try and assist the legal process if it gets to that, in order to actually provide this opinion that's going to be helpful to all parties. That's nonsense. These doctors, these assessors, most often are selected, like I said before, by the insurance company to help the insurance company. But if we are weighing the insurance doctor and your treating doctors and who has more credibility, I can tell you 9 times out of 10, in my experience, any judge will side with your doctors. And I'm talking from experience here, because your doctors have only one interest in mind, which is to help you. Whereas these experts, so to speak, their interest is to help the insurance company. So don't be afraid, don't panic, just do your homework, talk to us, get the information you need, and you will be on good footing.
I know we got to go in about a minute here, Sivan, but having to go to an IME is compulsory, but telling them the insurance company telling you where to get your treatment, that's different.
That's very different. That's very, very different. You have the option of choosing where you want to go. Again, unless it's in the policy. If the policy says you got to go to their clinic, but I haven't seen that before, I haven't seen a provision like that, then you don't. You can go get a recommendation from your doctor, which is what you should do, and go to whoever your doctor recommends. If it's an assessment, it's different. You got to go to their doctors. If it's for treatments, you should be able to go to whoever it is that you want to go.
If any of this is still baffling to you, there's so many different ways you can reach out to Sivan and his team, and we'll close out today's show with exactly that. How do you do it? The phone number, 1-855-821-5900, help@disabilityrights.ca. That's the go-to email address every time. There's also mydisabilityquestions.com. That's free and anonymous. And if you just go to disabilityrights.ca, the firm website, there is the media page that'll find a radio station across the country where you can catch our 1-hour radio program every week. So tune into that as well. And we'll catch you next time on the Disability Law Show.